Hi. I'm really excited to talk about my field observations this year. So I ended up doing all 20 hours at Will Rogers Elementary School. And this is the elementary school that's the closest one to campus. So most of the students there are the kids whose parents go to OSU. And so it's like all the kids who live in like family housing and etc. Those are the kids that go there. So there's a ton of kids who are bilingual, and there are kids who wear traditional clothes to school every day, and you see a lot of new kids and kids who grew up in other countries and are just now in the U.S. And that was something that was super cool for me to see. It was kind of strange. One of the first days I was there, there was a new kid who spoke barely any English, but it was all the kids in that class were like, oh, he doesn't speak a lot of English. Like, it's totally normal and it's totally okay. And I thought that was really cool how used to that the entire class was. And just seeing these kids that you can tell it's kind of hard for them to speak English, but they still all universally come together in music classes, and they can still all say the rhythms and play the games and have a really good time. And it doesn't matter because it's music, and music is such a universal language, so I thought that was really cool. I think my favorite part of observing was just kind of this really funny moment that happened. So Mrs. Austin, the teacher I was observing, had me do a lot of exercises. She goes through about 8 exercises in a 40-minute period. It's crazy. It moves so fast all the time. But it was so easy to see why she did that, because it kept these elementary school kids on track. There was no like transition in between activity. It was just go, go, go the entire time, and then the kids were out of there. So she had me do an exercise for about every class. In this one class, I was reading a poem, and it was about a squirrel, but it doesn't say it's about a squirrel, and you're supposed to have the kids guess what kind of animal it's about. And I read this poem, and nobody's getting it. So she has me read the poem again, and no one's getting it. And so I start kind of giving clues, and like, it lives in a tree. And a kid's like, oh, a snake. And you're like, no. And then a kid's like, it's a monkey. And you're like, no, it's not a monkey. It eats nuts. Monkeys don't eat nuts. And then just hearing the same answers over and over again. And finally I'm like, oh, it's fall. It's a fall animal, and you probably see it outside of your house a lot, in trees. You just see it all the time. It's everywhere right now. And this girl is really, like, as dramatically as possible and as confidently as possible, gets up out of crisscross, like, onto her knees, and just goes, I know! It's a leopard! It was the funniest thing that's ever happened. I died a little bit. Like, I was laughing so hard on the inside, but so just trying to keep it together in front of the kids. It was so lighthearted and fun in there the whole time, and I loved being there. So to backtrack on the lightheartedness, I think that's something that I personally got a lot better about this semester. The first couple times I went in and she was having me do stuff, I felt like I was being way too serious. I was like, oh, gotta get through the lesson plan, like, kind of awkward. And I've had a lot of experience with elementary school kids in music, and I was kind of surprised that I was like that, but I have experience with them in, like, camp, not in a classroom setting, especially with something that I'm so not used to. Like, the camp is the same thing every single year, and I did the camp growing up, and so it was really easy. It's really easy for me to function there. And like, my mom's the director, easy to function around her, but here it was like, all these, I don't know any of these kids' names. I don't know exactly what the purpose of the activity is yet, and she wants me to participate in it. And she's watching me, and it was kind of scary. And I remember the first day she was doing an activity where we were pairing up and dancing, and she told me, she was like, oh, if there's an odd amount of kids, you have to be someone's partner, and you're going to dance with them. And I was mortified. I was terrified. I was like, please don't have an odd number of kids. Please, I don't want to dance with this second grader. But by the end of the semester, like, I was doing everything for those kids. I was sitting on the rug with them. I was doing every exercise. I was doing all the motions to the Christmas songs. Just all of the above. And I really loved doing it. So to talk a little bit more about me teaching, she teaches from a workbook, and then there's a workbook for every single grade. And these workbooks have just like every half page is another exercise to do. And then there's like a CD with tracks on it that'll go along with it. But what she would do is I would show up a few minutes early, and she would be like, okay, you're going to do that one. And then you just read over it, and you just do it. You just read the paragraph, and you just do it. And the very first time I taught, I was doing this exercise where we kept the beat. So we kind of practiced all together, like, let's keep the beat. Where can you keep the beat at? We can keep the beat anywhere on our body. And then we would turn on a song, and a kid would get in the center of the circle, and they would keep the beat on a part of their body, and everyone would have to copy them. And I was so uncomfortable. I didn't quite know what was going on. I was just trying to get the kids to keep the beat, but I didn't have everyone's focus on me. I feel like it was kind of a mess. Even though she told me I did a good job, I was like, oh, I don't think I did. I feel like I was kind of a mess, but all right. And you have to be really impromptu in a lot of ways and really quick on your feet with elementary school kids, because you don't know quite how they're going to react, and it's a very different thing every day, and it's a very different exercise every exercise a lot of the times. And you never know what they're going to say or how they're going to react. And you don't have the same kids every day. Like, you have kids for 40 minutes once every 4 days, and that's not a lot of time to really get to know kids and their habits. And so you just never know what's going to happen, and you have to be really quick on your feet. There was one instance where a child got up and went running out of the classroom because he was upset. And Mrs. Austin went to go after him and looked at me and was like, can you just go? And I was like, okay, let's go. Like, I'm not even sure what exercise that you were about to start. Or I knew what exercise you were about to start, but I didn't read the paragraph. I'm not really sure what we're going to do, but I needed to hop up there and do it right away. Turned out to be Jingle Bells, where we were singing Jingle Bells, and then we were adding instruments, and we were doing motions, and we were doing all of that. But that particular situation just made me realize how much you have to just be ready for anything with a classroom full of kids. Like, you never know what's going to happen, and it always doesn't go very smooth and very easily. To talk about my micro teachings, because I feel like my observations really help my micro teaching. The first time I micro taught, I was super awkward and did kind of the same thing that I did when I started teaching in observations. Try to be super serious and try to be like, oh, let's do it. Like, let's do this exercise I came up with. And I just got so, like, worked up in what we were supposed to do and, like, this list and, like, oh, that I wasn't quick thinking on my feet, or even I wasn't paying attention to time at all. And I got nothing done. It was horrible time management, horrible. But when I went to do my second micro teaching, and I was like, what can I do better? And I was like, at this point, I I felt like I was doing pretty good in my observation teaching, and I was like, how can I transfer what I'm doing there into my micro teaching? And I was like, let's just have a good time. Elementary school kids go in there, and they have a good time, and they get good doing it. And even you don't have to explain to elementary school kids, like, oh, and now we're going to do this. Like, you just get up there and you tell them what to do, and they do it, and they don't need a reason a lot of times. And I thought it was fun and really productive. I didn't want to get up there and be like everyone else in this like horrible, like monotone voice thing. And you're like, that was really productive, but so monotone. I want to have a good time, and I feel like I did that. Like, I had a really good time on my second micro teaching. I do need to work on feedback. That's something I didn't get a lot to do. I didn't do that a lot in observations, just because I wasn't in charge of any of the assessment activities. But it's something that I'm definitely going to work on. And now that I think I can keep a lighter mood while still being productive, feedback is definitely the next thing that I want to add to that list. Like, also, like, being able to tell kids what to fix to get even better. My student instruction, I don't want to say that was my favorite part of the semester, but those 4 weeks were so much fun. I worked with 2 kids on matching pitch, and it was kind of like observations. Like, I just kind of got thrown in the water, and I was like, here's what we're going to do, and I've never done it before, and I have the knowledge behind it to do it, but let's just do it. And definitely watching my 4th video compared to my first video, I got significantly better. Just being out of my element and out of my comfort zone kind of swayed me the first lesson, but by the 4th one, I was on track, and I was having a good time. And the kids were being really productive, and I felt so good when we finished that 4th lesson, and these exercises that they were having trouble with, they were just getting. They were like, yep, there it is, that's the note. And it was amazing to watch their progress in 4 weeks. Like, kids are amazing if you give them the right tools to succeed. So yeah, that's the great time I had this semester in all my teaching, and I'm so excited for the next 2.5 years, and I get the rest of my life and the rest of my teaching. Thank you.